Most websites don't fail dramatically. They don't suddenly disappear overnight. They slowly decay through neglect.
A plugin stops updating. A form quietly breaks. Search rankings begin slipping long before anyone notices the traffic loss.
And the dangerous part is the website still looks online. To the owner, everything appears fine.
But underneath the surface, performance drifts, integrations age, trust signals weaken, and vulnerabilities quietly accumulate.
In this episode, we explore why websites are not projects you simply finish and forget.
They are living operational systems connected to browsers, APIs, hosting environments, search engines, and constantly changing user expectations.
You'll break down plugin decay, SEO erosion, backup misconceptions, accessibility failures, and the hidden operational risks most businesses never monitor.
Because digital stewardship isn't about perfection, it's about sustained operational care over time.
Your website is never finished. And the moment maintenance stops, degradation begins.
Right, which is honestly a pretty intense reality check. I mean, the idea that the moment you stop actively maintaining a site, it just begins to die.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really worth exploring why so many incredibly smart business owners fall right into this trap, because it really seems to come down to like a fundamental flaw in how we view the digital world.
Oh, completely. We tend to treat websites like static products, you know? The psychology there is super understandable.
Right, you build it, you launch it, pop the champagne, and just move on.
Exactly. You spend, what, 6 months agonizing over the design, the copywriting, the branding. So hitting that publish button, it feels like crossing a finish line.
Yeah, you're done. You check it off the list.
But a website isn't, it's not a printed brochure sitting perfectly still on a coffee table. It's this highly complex, living operational system that's forced to interact with a really unstable external environment.
So much closer to like a biological ecosystem.
Yeah.
Or actually maybe a car engine's a better way to look at it.
Oh, I like that. How so?
Well, think about a car parked in a driveway. You know, the hood is closed, the doors are locked, it looks perfectly stationary from the outside.
Right, just sitting there.
But if you leave that car sitting for a year without starting it, what happens? The fluids separate and degrade, the battery slowly drains itself, the rubber belts get all brittle from the weather.
Yeah, the neglect just compounds.
Exactly. And your website is doing the exact same thing because it's tethered to, third-party services, plugins, web browsers, APIs, all these hosting environments that never stop shifting.
That's a great point, because if your website stands completely still while the entire internet around it updates and evolves, your foundation is actively moving beneath you.
Yeah, failure rarely starts with, like, a dramatic hack or a server just smoking.
Right. It starts quietly. You ignore some core software updates, so your platform falls a version behind, or a third-party API that your site uses to pull in social media feeds changes its communication protocols.
And your integration just silently stops talking to it, just breaks.
Exactly. Then you have aging content that slowly erodes trust. And, SEO rankings that slip millimeter by millimeter for weeks before anyone even thinks to check the analytics dashboard.
Because the danger really lies in the cumulative nature of that neglect. All those tiny invisible oversights, they just compound into massive operational risks.
They really do.
So I actually have a question for you listening right now. When was the last time you looked at your website as a living, breathing system instead of just, a digital brochure you finished a year ago? Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, recognizing that shift in mindset is definitely the required first step.
And the second step is identifying where that quiet rot actually starts, which I guess takes us all the way down to the external code you bring into your ecosystem.
Right, the code level. So think about every single plugin or extension you add to your site. Every single one acts as a dependency.
Meaning you're injecting external code that you don't actually own or control right into your infrastructure.
Exactly. And every single one of those introduces a new update cycle, a new potential compatibility conflict, and, frankly, an open window for security exposure.
Because developers move on, right?
Yeah, independent developers frequently abandon their projects. They get busy, they stop releasing patches, and suddenly vulnerabilities quietly materialize right in the middle of your digital storefront.
Okay, wait, let me push back on the urgency of that for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
If I have like a calendar plugin from 2022 and it's displaying the current dates perfectly today, why go in and constantly mess with it? Breaking what isn't broken just seems like creating unnecessary work.
Well, the visual output of that calendar might look totally fine to you, but the environment processing that calendar has changed.
How so?
So the server running your website uses a programming language called PHP to construct your pages on the fly, and that language receives regular updates to patch security flaws and improve speed.
Okay, making sense so far.
So when your server upgrades to a new version of PHP, but your 2022 calendar plugin is still speaking the old, outdated version, the translation breaks down.
Oh, wow. So it's literally speaking an old language.
Right. The old code doesn't recognize the modern security protocols, so it turns that functional-looking calendar into a giant unlocked back door.
And hackers know to look for that.
Oh, absolutely. Hackers use automated bots to scan the internet specifically looking for that outdated 2022 code because they already possess the master key to exploit it.
Man, so the internet is essentially just leaving your static code behind.
Exactly. Which is why, for the person actually managing the day-to-day operations, you have to build an audit schedule.
Right, like every 3 to 6 months, you have to review those dependencies.
Yeah. And if a plugin is inactive, you don't just click disable, you completely delete the code from your server.
Because even inactive code is still sitting there as a liability.
Exactly. And if two plugins are doing almost the exact same thing, consolidate them. Every piece of overlapping code is a risk.
And that consolidation directly fights another silent killer at the code level, right?
Yeah.
Performance drift.
Oh, performance drift is huge. And it happens so gradually that the day-to-day operator never notices it.
Because you log into your dashboard every morning, so your brain doesn't really register that the site is taking, a quarter of a second longer to load.
Right, and then it's a half second, then a full second. It accumulates in the margins.
Yeah, your database gets bloated because every time you hit save draft on a post over 3 years, it saves a full duplicate copy of that data.
Exactly. And then there are the tracking tools. You add a Facebook pixel, a Google Analytics script, a heat mapping tool, a pop-up generator.
It just keeps stacking up.
Right, so every time a user clicks your link, their browser has to download, read, and execute 50 different external scripts before it even begins to draw the hero image on your homepage.
Which is what we call plugin stacking, right?
Yeah.
And the browser overhead for that is just massive.
Massive. And Google monitors this ruthlessly through what they call core web vitals. They are no longer just looking at the generic load time.
Right, they get super specific now.
Yeah, they're measuring the largest contentful paint, meaning how many milliseconds does it take for the main piece of content to physically appear on the user's screen.
And they also measure, how might the layout shifts around as those slow scripts finally load, right?
Exactly. If your unoptimized tracking tools cause the text to jump around while the user's trying to read, Google actually penalizes your visibility.
That's wild. Think about your own digital footprint right now, for those listening. How many redundant plugins or forgotten tracking scripts from, some old marketing campaign do you think are secretly running in the background?
Just making your user's browser do all this unnecessary math.
Exactly. Drop guess in the comments below. I'm really curious. But when that code bloats and the loading time slows down, human users aren't the only ones getting impatient, are they?
No, not at all. Google's automated crawlers start hitting walls too, and that triggers a completely different kind of operational decay.
Right, which brings us to the erosion of search traffic.
Yeah, and this erosion behaves exactly like soil erosion. You don't see the ground physically disappearing while you sit there and watch it.
But day by day, the underlying foundation just washes away.
Exactly. Rankings never vanish instantly unless you incur some sort of manual penalty. The decay compounds invisibly.
So by the time your revenue dips and you finally, check your traffic reports, that erosion has been actively undermining you for 6 months.
Yep. And it starts with the digital net ends. Say you delete an old service page, but you forget to remove the internal links pointing to it from your old blog posts.
Oh, right. So when Google's crawler navigates your site and hits those 404 error pages, what happens?
It assumes your site is poorly maintained and it just stops crawling as deeply.
Wow. And then there is the shifting nature of search intent, too.
Oh, that's a big one. If someone searches for best marketing strategies in the current year and your cornerstone article hasn't been updated since 2021, the algorithm knows the content is stale.
And you just lose ground to competitors who are actively pruning and refreshing their information.
Exactly. Combating that requires treating your content as an operational habit, not just a static archive.
Right. So reviewing your top-performing pages quarterly, that allows you to refresh outdated statistics, swap out old screenshots, fix those broken links.
Yeah, search engines reward active maintenance. But, All that visibility is completely meaningless if human access is compromised.
Which is such a huge point. Website accessibility degrades just as quietly as SEO, but the operational risks are immediate.
They really are. And website accessibility suffers from this massive misconception.
Yeah, people assume it's a launch day checkbox.
Right. You run the accessibility scanner before the site goes live, you get the green light, and you just assume you are compliant forever.
But in reality, a marketing associate changing a buy now button
Yeah.
from dark blue to light blue because it, pops more, that can instantly destroy the contrast ratio.
Exactly, making the text entirely unreadable for a user with visual impairments.
Or, say a developer installs a flashy new carousel tool that relies entirely on mouse interactions.
Right, and if they use generic HTML structures instead of proper semantic button tags, a mouse user won't notice any difference.
But a screen reader, the software used by visually impaired visitors to navigate the web, completely ignores those generic tags.
Yep. Suddenly, a customer physically cannot navigate past your homepage using their keyboard. You've silently blocked a user from actually giving you their money.
Just because of a slight layout tweak. It's crazy. Accessibility requires the same sustained, scheduled attention as your security protocols.
Absolutely. Running regular tests with tools like Lighthouse or the Wavy accessibility tool is essential.
And honestly, just physically attempting to navigate your own checkout process using only your keyboard, that catches those barriers before they turn into lost sales or, legal liabilities.
Yeah, and all of those accessibility hurdles, the broken links, the layout shifts, they don't just frustrate users. They actively erode the most vital currency you have online.
Which is trust.
Exactly, trust. Users process these microfailures subconsciously. Every glitch, every delayed load or missing image, it creates this layer of doubt before they have even read a single word of your sales copy.
By the way, if you are finding these operational insights helpful, make sure to hit subscribe on our YouTube NCWEBDEV channel right now so you don't miss all the new stuff we have coming out.
Because trust signals are deeply fascinating, and honestly, the absence of them is so loud.
Oh, for sure. Think about the fundamental security handshake, like your SSL certificate. That is the protocol that creates an encrypted tunnel between your user's browser and your server.
Right. And when that certificate expires simply because someone forgot to renew it, the browser doesn't just quietly load the site anyway.
No, it throws up that massive full-screen warning. This site is not secure. Attackers might be trying to steal your information.
And the visitor bounces instantly. There's no recovering from that.
Right. And then you have visual abandonment signals.
Yeah.
Like a copyright year in the footer that says 2019, or a blog section that's been gathering dust for 3 years.
Or broken formatting on mobile devices. Users interpret these aesthetic problems as business neglect.
Yeah, if you aren't maintaining your own digital storefront, the subconscious assumption is that you won't maintain your customer service either.
Exactly. But honestly, the most devastating failure of trust is the silent failure of the broken form.
Oh man, the broken form.
A potential client spends 10 minutes filling out a detailed lead capture form, they hit submit, and the button just spins infinitely.
Or even more dangerously, the page displays a cheerful, "Success, we'll be in touch" message.
Right, but because the underlying mail server integration quietly updated its security protocols last month, the email never actually reaches your inbox.
The lead is just gone forever and you are completely unaware it even existed.
Yep. Testing your critical forms on a strict monthly schedule is mandatory. Trust is strictly operational.
Yeah, it is never assumed by the user. It is continuously earned through consistent, intentional functionality.
Which actually brings us to the most dangerous false safety net in the entire digital landscape.
Oh, the backup illusion. Wait, let me push back on this because I am literally looking at my inbox right now and I get an automated email every single Sunday morning that says weekly backup complete with a nice reassuring green check mark.
I know the exact email you're talking about.
So are you telling me that automated email means nothing?
I'm telling you an untested backup is not a safety net. It is a highly optimistic theory. Automated backups fail silently all the time.
Wait, really? But it has the green check mark.
I know. The server might generate the backup file, which triggers your green checkmark email, but the database inside that file might be totally corrupted.
Oh, wow.
Or the file might be missing your entire media library due to a server timeout error during the compression process.
That is terrifying.
And furthermore, if you haven't been actively monitoring your site for vulnerabilities, malware may have injected itself into your code like 3 months ago?
Oh, I see where this is going. So your site finally crashes. You proudly go to restore your backup from last week, And you are literally just restoring the exact malware that brought your system down in the first place.
Exactly. The physical act of restoring the site is where the theory falls apart. A saved ZIP file is completely useless if the underlying mechanism to unpack it, rebuild the relational database, map the URLs correctly, and deploy it to a live server is broken.
Yeah, or frankly, if the person handling the crisis doesn't actually know how to perform those complex database commands while the business is just bleeding revenue by the hour.
Right. A backup you never tested is just a theory. You have to test your restores.
It requires creating a safe staging environment, physically running the restoration process, verifying that the database tables reconnected properly.
Checking that the images actually load, and timing exactly how long the recovery process actually takes.
I really want to hear from the audience on this specific nightmare. Have you ever actually tried restoring your website from a backup under pressure? Share your horror stories or, your success stories in the comments.
Oh, it is a highly educational panic the first time you attempt it.
So true. Okay, so we've audited the plugin dependencies. We understand the mechanics of performance drift. We're tracking the SEO and accessibility erosion. And we've verified that our backups actually deploy.
Right, which leaves the final operational layer. The actual physical land your digital house is built on, the unseen server infrastructure.
Hosting complacency. Reliable hosting infrastructure is exactly like the plumbing in your house, isn't it?
It really is. When the pressure is good and the pipes are sealed, it is completely invisible. You never think about it.
But when the maintenance stops, the pipes burst and destroy everything in the building. And the primary danger with hosting problems is that they remain entirely hidden from the site owner.
Exactly. Your customers feel the pain long before you do. A perfect example of this is TTFB, or time to first byte.
Okay, break that down for us.
It basically measures the latency of your server. Think of it like placing an order at a restaurant. TTFB is how long the kitchen takes to process the ticket before they even send out the first appetizer.
Right, so it's literally just the time it takes the server to think about it.
Exactly. If your server is underpowered or running outdated software, it might take 2 full seconds just to process the user's request before it sends a single line of code to the browser.
And that delay just destroys the user experience. Plus, it severely limits how many pages Google's bots are willing to crawl.
Yep.
And then you have downtime spikes. Say your server crashes for 15 minutes at 3:00 a.m. your local time. You sleep right through it. Your local dashboard looks totally fine the next morning.
Right, but an international customer trying to purchase your services received a server error and just went straight to a competitor.
Which means uptime monitoring is completely non-negotiable. Tools like Uptime Robot, Better Stack, or Pingdom.
Yeah, they act as a continuous heart rate monitor, pinging your site from locations around the world every 60 seconds. You must know when your infrastructure fails before your audience does.
And beyond downtime, you have to monitor the actual hardware resources.
Right.
Like the capacity ratios.
Exactly, the RAM and the CPU limits.
Right. Because if a piece of your content unexpectedly goes viral, or you run a highly successful promotional campaign, thousands of concurrent users are suddenly asking your server to run database queries simultaneously.
And if you haven't monitored your capacity, the server's processor simply gets overwhelmed. It buckles under the weight of the traffic.
And returns a 500 internal server error precisely at the moment you finally achieve the traffic you work so hard for.
It's heartbreaking when that happens.
Yeah.
But bringing all these mechanical and environmental factors together, true digital stewardship is not about living in a state of paranoia.
Right. It is not about constantly rebuilding your site from scratch out of fear of the shifting internet.
It is simply about sustained operational awareness, building the systems and the scheduled checkpoints that catch microscopic degradation before it compounds into a systemic failure.
It is a calendar of operational habits. You build an update schedule for your core software and dependencies on a strict cadence.
You execute regular performance audits, measuring your paint times and visual stability.
You run scheduled security reviews, verifying SSL certificates and running vulnerability scans. You manage your content, actively pruning the dead ends and refreshing the intent.
Because a website is never a project you complete. It is an operational asset you continuously protect.
Neglect compounds quietly in the margins. Trust declines. Rankings slip. Performance drifts. Vulnerabilities grow in outdated code.
Digital stewardship requires sustained care over time to guarantee reliability, visibility, and resilience.
If a critical lead capture form on your website silently broke right now, or your server's response time suddenly doubled because of a database error, what is the exact mechanism or alert system that would notify you?
And how many days of revenue, traffic, or user trust would you bleed out before you finally discovered the problem? That is a terrifying but entirely necessary operational question to ask yourself today.
Thank you all for joining us on this exploration of digital stewardship and the unseen mechanics of the web. Don't forget to leave your thoughts, your redundant plugin guesses, and your backup stories in the comments below, and we will catch you in the next one.